The rain came down so hard that night it almost erased the city itself, turning the streets into rivers of silver and shadow, while thunder rolled across the sky like distant explosions from another lifetime. And beneath the flickering neon lights of downtown Chicago, a black luxury SUV sat quietly outside one of the tallest corporate towers in the city, its windshield covered in rain, its engine humming softly. And behind the steering wheel sat an old man wearing a cheap grey driver's uniform that looked too large for his thin body, his shoulders slightly bent, his hands rough and weathered like someone who had spent his entire life carrying invisible weight, while security guards, businessmen, and wealthy executives walked past him without a second glance, because to everyone around him, he was nothing more than another tired old chauffeur trying to survive in a world that had already forgotten him. But the old man's eyes were different. They were calm in a way that only men who had survived hell could ever become calm. And when his daughter stepped out of the tower that night with fear hidden behind her expensive smile, he saw something no one else noticed. Someone was following her. Inside the building, the company celebration had finally ended, though the music still echoed faintly through the marble lobby, while drunken executives laughed near the elevators, unaware that danger was already crawling toward them from the darkness outside. And Amelia Carter adjusted the sleeve of her black coat as she walked quickly toward the exit, trying not to show how exhausted she felt after another 14-hour day working as the youngest financial director in Blackstone Global Holdings, a billion-dollar corporation filled with predators pretending to wear human faces. She looked strong to everyone else, confident, untouchable, but tonight her hands were trembling, because 3 hours earlier she had found something she was never supposed to see. And now she could not stop thinking about the email, the hidden accounts, the illegal transfers, the names. She had accidentally uncovered evidence that someone inside the company was laundering millions of dollars through offshore operations, connected to powerful men nobody dared question. And before leaving her office, she had received a message from an unknown number. You should forget what you saw. No signature, no explanation, just those 6 words. Her heels clicked across the wet pavement as she stepped outside the tower and searched for the company vehicle waiting near the curb. And the moment she saw the old driver step out to open the back door for her, part of the tension inside her chest softened instantly. "Long night, Miss Carter," the old man said quietly. His voice was gentle. "Familiar? Safe." Amelia gave a tired smile. "You always say that like you already know the answer, Daniel." The old man nodded slightly. "Some nights feel heavier than others." She climbed into the SUV, leaning her head back against the leather seat while rain tapped against the windows like nervous fingers, and Daniel closed the door before returning silently to the front seat, adjusting the mirror for only a second, though in reality he was studying the black sedan parked half a block behind them. Still there. Same vehicle from yesterday, same headlights, same 2 silhouettes inside. His fingers tightened slightly around the steering wheel. Not fear. Calculation. The SUV pulled into traffic, gliding through the city, while Amelia stared absent-mindedly out the window at the glowing skyline, unaware that Daniel's eyes kept scanning every mirror, every intersection, every shadow moving near them. And after several minutes, she finally spoke again. "Daniel, can I ask you something strange?" "You can ask me anything." She hesitated. "Do you ever get the feeling that something bad is about to happen?" The question lingered heavily between them. Daniel's eyes remained on the road. "Yes," he answered softly. "Usually right before it does." Amelia let out a nervous laugh, but it disappeared quickly. "I think someone's watching me." Daniel already knew, but he asked anyway. "Why do you think that?" "Because people don't send warning messages for no reason." She swallowed hard. "And because when I left my office tonight, I could have sworn somebody was standing outside my door." The city lights reflected across Daniel's tired face as silence filled the SUV for several seconds. Then he spoke carefully. "Sometimes powerful people become dangerous when they believe they have something to lose." Amelia frowned slightly. "You talk like you've seen that before." Daniel smiled faintly. "Life teaches old men many things. She looked at him through the mirror. There was always something strange about him. He had worked as her private driver for almost 2 years, yet somehow she knew almost nothing about his past, except that he lived alone in a tiny apartment outside the city and never talked about family, friends, or where he came from before working for the company. Still, she trusted him more than anyone else in her life. Maybe because he listened, maybe because he never judged her, or maybe because every time she felt alone, he somehow already understood. The SUV turned onto a quieter road leading toward Amelia's upscale apartment building near the riverfront. But before they reached the next intersection, Daniel suddenly slowed the vehicle. His eyes narrowed slightly. The black sedan behind them had turned too, still following. Amelia noticed his expression immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Daniel replied calmly. "Just traffic." But his mind was already moving 10 steps ahead. Distance, escape routes, blind corners, civilian presence, weapons. The old instincts returned so naturally it almost frightened him. For years he had tried to bury that part of himself beneath silence and ordinary routines, convincing the world he was nothing more than a weak old man nearing retirement. But some instincts never truly disappear, especially not in men trained to survive wars nobody officially admitted existed. The sedan accelerated suddenly, too fast, too deliberate. Daniel's heartbeat slowed instead of rising. Danger always made him calmer. "Miss Carter," he said quietly, "put your seatbelt on." Amelia blinked in confusion. "Why?" "Please." Something in his voice changed. Not louder, not emotional, just absolute. And for the first time since knowing him, Amelia felt something cold move through her chest. She fastened the seatbelt instantly. 2 seconds later, the black sedan slammed toward them from behind. The impact exploded through the street like thunder, shattering glass across the road while Amelia screamed, and the SUV swerved violently sideways, tires screeching against rain-soaked pavement before crashing against the curb. And before she could even understand what was happening, Daniel's hand shot backward over the seat.
"Stay down."
The words came sharp, military, controlled, not the voice of a chauffeur. Another vehicle appeared ahead of them, blocking the road completely, while 4 men stepped out wearing dark jackets, their faces hidden beneath rain and shadows, and Amelia's entire body froze as one of them pulled out a handgun. "Oh my God!" Daniel's eyes locked onto the gun instantly. Everything slowed, angles, movement, breathing. He had seen this exact moment too many times before. The first attacker approached the SUV cautiously while rain poured down around him. But before the man reached the door, Daniel moved. Fast. Far too fast for an old driver. The SUV door burst open violently into the attacker's chest, knocking him backward while Daniel stepped out into the storm with terrifying precision, grabbing the man's wrist, twisting the handgun free in one smooth motion before driving his elbow into the attacker's throat hard, enough to silence him instantly. The second man charged forward. Daniel fired once. Clean, direct. The attacker collapsed. Amelia stared from inside the SUV, with horror flooding her face because the old man she thought she knew was gone. This was someone else. Someone deadly. Someone trained. The remaining attackers spread apart quickly, realizing too late that they had made a catastrophic mistake. While Daniel moved through the rain with frightening calmness, using the SUV as cover, as bullets shattered windows around them. And despite his age, every movement felt efficient, controlled, almost surgical, like violence itself had become part of his muscle memory long ago. One attacker circled left. Daniel noticed instantly. 3 shots rang out. Then silence. Only rain remained, heavy, endless. The final attacker panicked and ran toward the second vehicle. But Daniel's voice stopped him cold. "Drop the weapon." The man turned, fired wildly. Daniel shot him before the second bullet left the chamber, and then it was over. Just like that, the old man stood alone in the middle of the rain-soaked street, breathing steadily while 4 armed men lay motionless around him, his grey uniform soaked completely, blood mixing with rainwater near his shoes, and inside the SUV, Amelia, could barely breathe because nothing in her world made sense anymore. Daniel slowly opened the passenger door. His face returned to calmness almost instantly, but his eyes carried ghosts now. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. Amelia stared at him in shock. Who are you?" For the first time in years, Daniel looked away before answering. And somewhere deep inside him, he realized the life he had spent decades hiding was finally catching up to him. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Too far away. Too late. Daniel glanced toward the dark skyline before kneeling beside the unconscious attacker nearest the road, searching his pockets quickly until he found a small silver coin marked with a symbol Amelia didn't recognize. But Daniel did. And the moment he saw it, all the color drained from his face. Because that symbol belonged to a unit that officially did not exist anymore. A unit connected to his past. A unit that believed he was already dead. Amelia stepped out of the SUV slowly, still trembling. "Daniel, what is happening?" The old man stared at the coin, in silence for several seconds, while thunder rolled across the city again. Then he finally whispered words that made Amelia's blood run cold. "They found us." The rain kept falling long after the gunfire ended, washing blood into the gutters, while distant sirens echoed through the sleeping city, like ghosts searching for something they would never fully understand. And Amelia stood frozen beside the damaged SUV with trembling hands wrapped around herself, staring at the old man she thought she knew, trying desperately to connect the gentle chauffeur who used to remind her to eat dinner with the terrifying figure who had just dismantled 4 armed attackers in less than a minute, without showing even a trace of panic. But the hardest part was not what he had done. It was the look in his eyes afterward. Not pride, not anger, regret, deep ancient regret. Daniel quickly removed the magazine from the stolen handgun, checked the street once more, then tossed the weapon beneath the nearest vehicle before turning toward Amelia again. And for a moment his face softened slightly when he saw the fear in her expression. "Amelia," he said quietly, "we have to leave right now." She took a step backward instead. "Who are you?" The question cut deeper than any bullet ever had. Daniel lowered his eyes briefly as another wave of sirens grew louder in the distance. "This isn't the place." "You killed them." "They were going to kill you. You knew this would happen, didn't you?" Her voice cracked. "You knew somebody was after me." Daniel stayed silent. That silence became her answer. The wind whipped rain through the empty street while Amelia's mind spiraled violently, trying to understand how the old driver who opened doors for executives and smiled politely at receptionists could move like a trained assassin, and suddenly every strange detail she had ignored over the past 2 years came crashing back into her memory all at once. The scar near his neck, how he always noticed exits in every restaurant, how he once caught a falling coffee mug without even looking, how his calmness never broke no matter the situation. None of it had been normal. None of it. "Tell me the truth," she whispered. Daniel looked at her carefully, and in that moment he realized there was no hiding anymore. Not from her, not from the past, not from himself. "My name isn't Daniel Brooks," he said softly. Amelia felt her stomach tighten. "My real name is Marcus Vale." Thunder rolled across the city again, and Amelia suddenly recognized the name. Not personally. From somewhere else. Somewhere distant. A memory from years ago. News reports. Military rumors. Stories whispered online before mysteriously disappearing. Marcus Vale, a legendary special operations commander, supposedly killed during a classified overseas mission almost 15 years earlier. Her breathing became uneven. "That's impossible." "I wish it was." The sirens were getting closer now. Too close. Marcus gently grabbed her arm. "Listen to me carefully. The people who attacked us tonight won't stop. Police won't protect you. Your company won't protect you. Nobody will. If we stay here, you die." Amelia wanted to pull away, wanted to scream, wanted to run. But deep inside herself, beneath the terror and confusion, she knew one horrifying truth already. He was telling the truth. Marcus guided her toward a narrow alley beside the street. Just as police lights flashed several blocks away, and the two disappeared into the darkness, moments before officers flooded the crash site, while rainwater dripped from rusted fire escapes above them, and Amelia struggled to keep pace beside the old man, who suddenly no longer walked like someone elderly at all. His movements had changed completely. Sharper, lighter, like the disguise itself had fallen away. Finally, they reached an abandoned parking garage, several streets away, where an old black pickup truck sat, hidden beneath a torn tarp, and Marcus pulled the cover away before opening the passenger door. Amelia stared at him. "You planned this?" "No," Marcus replied quietly. "I prepared for it." She climbed into the truck slowly while her mind continued racing, and several moments later, the engine started with a low growl before they disappeared into the wet city. Night once again, leaving behind police sirens, corpses, and the shattered remains of the life Amelia thought she understood. For nearly 20 minutes, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of rain and tires against pavement filled the silence. Finally, Amelia turned toward him. "You've been lying to me since the day we met." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. "Yes." "Why become a driver?" "Because it kept me close to you." Her confusion deepened instantly. "Close to me? Why?" Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter, and for the first time in years, the strongest soldier many men had ever known looked afraid. "Not of enemies, of truth." "You were never supposed to know this," he said softly. "I wanted you to have a normal life." Amelia's voice shook. "What are you talking about?" Marcus finally looked at her, and the next words changed her world forever. "Because I'm your father." The truck seemed to lose all sound, all movement. Everything inside Amelia went completely still as she stared at him with absolute disbelief, her heartbeat roaring louder than the storm outside, while memories from her childhood exploded violently through her mind. Her mother crying quietly at night, the empty space where a father was supposed to be, the military photograph hidden in an old drawer, the official letter that said he died serving his country before she was old enough to remember his face. "No," she whispered weakly. "No, my father died." "That's what they told your mother." Tears instantly filled Amelia's eyes. "Stop the truck! Amelia, stop the truck!" Marcus pulled sharply beneath an overpass while rain hammered the roof above them, and before the truck fully stopped, Amelia shoved the door open and stumbled out into the storm, breathing hard while tears mixed with rain across her face. "You don't get to say that," she cried. "You don't get to suddenly appear and tell me you're my father after 28 years. Marcus stepped out slowly, standing several feet away from her beneath the dim yellow lights of the overpass. "I know. You left us!" His face tightened with pain. "No, I was taken from you." Amelia laughed bitterly through tears. "Do you even hear yourself?" Marcus reached into his jacket carefully and pulled out an old photograph, sealed inside worn plastic, then handed it toward her silently. Amelia hesitated before taking it. The moment she looked down, her knees almost gave out beneath her. It was a picture of her mother, young, smiling, holding a baby wrapped in a pink blanket, and standing beside them was a younger Marcus wearing military fatigues, his arm around them both, while pride and love shined openly in his eyes. Written on the bottom in faded ink were 4 words: "My entire world." Amelia's hands started trembling uncontrollably. "You kept this?" Marcus nodded once. "Every day." She looked up at him again, and suddenly the resemblance became impossible to ignore. The eyes, the expression, even the way he stood. "All this time? Oh my God." Marcus looked away toward the rain-filled streets beyond the overpass. "After my final operation overseas, I discovered people inside our own government were selling military intelligence to private organizations. I refused to stay silent. Before I could expose them, my entire unit was ambushed." His voice grew quieter. "Most of my men died." Amelia listened without breathing. "I survived. But the people responsible decided it was easier if Marcus Vale officially disappeared forever. They erased me, declared me dead, and they threatened your mother and you to make sure I stayed buried." The storm rumbled above them. "So I stayed away," Marcus whispered painfully, "because it was the only way to keep you alive." Amelia covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Every lonely birthday, every school event without a father, every night wondering why she had not been enough for someone to stay. All of it suddenly shattered into something far more painful. He had loved her, from a distance, alone. Marcus continued softly. Years later, I learned the same network had infiltrated Blackstone Global. When you joined the company, I came back under another identity to watch over you. Amelia stared at him in disbelief. You became my driver just to protect me? Yes, and all this time, you knew who I was. Every second. The silence between them became overwhelming. Then suddenly Marcus' expression changed. Danger. He grabbed Amelia instantly and pulled her behind one of the concrete pillars, just as headlights appeared at the far entrance of the underpass. 3 black SUVs, too organized to be police. Marcus's eyes hardened immediately. They tracked us faster than I expected. Doors opened. Armed men stepped out. At least 8. Amelia's breathing turned frantic. What do we do? Marcus looked at her calmly despite the odds. You trust me. It wasn't a question. For several seconds, Amelia stared at the man who had spent years sacrificing everything to protect her, without asking for recognition, without revealing himself, without even allowing himself the right to be called father. Then slowly, through tears and fear, she nodded. Marcus moved instantly. He led her through a maintenance doorway hidden behind the pillar and into a narrow, underground tunnel. Beneath the city, while gunshots exploded behind them, echoing violently through the concrete corridors as armed men chased after them. The tunnel smelled of rust and water, while emergency lights flickered overhead, casting red shadows across Marcus's face as he guided Amelia deeper underground with astonishing speed despite his age. Who are these people? She asked breathlessly. The same people who buried my unit. And they're killing people over financial records? Marcus glanced back briefly. The money is only part of it. Blackstone launders funds for covert weapons, programs and private military operations. Amelia felt sick. Everything she believed about her company was collapsing. Gunshots echoed again behind them. Closer now. Marcus suddenly shoved open another steel door leading into an abandoned subway platform coated in darkness and dust, then quickly locked it behind them before scanning the area. His instincts moved faster than thought itself, always calculating, always protecting. Amelia watched him with growing realization. This man had spent his entire life at war. Even now, Marcus found an old electrical box near the tracks and forced it open, revealing hidden supplies inside. Weapons, medical kits, passports, cash. Amelia stared in shock. How many places like this do you have? Enough. He handed her a flashlight while loading a pistol with frightening familiarity. You planned for every possibility. No, Marcus corrected softly. I survived every possibility. The words hung heavily in the darkness. Then suddenly the steel door behind them shook violently. The attackers had found them. Marcus looked toward the opposite tunnel, entrance leading into darkness beyond the platform. There's an exit 300 yards ahead, he said. Once we reach street level, there's a safe house nearby. Amelia grabbed his arm before he could move. Dad! The word stopped him cold. For a second, Marcus could not breathe. 28 years, and somehow hearing that single word nearly broke him more than any battlefield ever had. Amelia's eyes filled again. Please don't die. Marcus gently touched her face, and for the first time since she was a baby, a father held his daughter again. I came back for you, he whispered. I'm not leaving you now. The steel door burst open behind them. Gunfire exploded through the station. Marcus pulled Amelia toward the tunnel as bullets shattered concrete around them, while the armed men flooded onto the platform, and the old soldier moved with terrifying precision through the darkness, returning fire while protecting his daughter with his own body every step forward. But then, halfway through the tunnel, Marcus suddenly froze. A figure emerged ahead from the shadows, tall, motionless, holding a rifle. And when the man stepped beneath the dim tunnel light, Marcus' entire face drained of color, because he recognized him instantly. The man smiled coldly. Hello, Commander. Amelia looked between them in confusion. Marcus whispered only one name, Cole. And in that moment, Amelia realized the nightmare was far from over. because the man standing in front of them was not just another assassin. He was someone Marcus once trusted with his life.